Governor Mbah over demolitions. On the foreign scene, Italy court sentences Amanda Knox to 3 years in slander case. And in sports, former Juventus sports boss Conte appointed Napoli manager. Details shortly. Public and civil servants returned to work on Tuesday following the one-week suspension of the nationwide strike by organized labor. Correspondents who visited the federal and state secretariats in Enugu were reports that the workers were fully on ground for their normal activities. A cross-section of civil servants who spoke to Signature TV correspondent David Okoro commended the labor leaders for their fearlessness in championing the cause of the Nigerian workers.
The labor did not fail us, and they are struggling so that our rights will be given to us. We are all Nigerians. Why not consider labor a high taste of the situation now? Go to market, even transportation to the offices is too high. Before you get to the little one they were giving to us, all will vanish in transportation.
Every one of us is very happy because they didn't take any bribe from them. Rather, they are working in order to help every one of us to get the minimum wage. So we are happy with them.
I am encouraging labor. Let them continue pushing harder to ensure that the salary of civil servants is increased, at least to some reasonable extent.
They suspended it to which result? If the result is going to be positive, it's okay. But the issue of starting strike today, 3 hours, they suspend it at the end. We did not see anything. That one, I don't like it. So if they resolved it for our own good, it will be okay because things are very costly. And civil servants, they are suffering.
The country's organized labor, made up of the Nigerian Labour Congress and Trade Union Congress, had Tuesday announced the suspension of its nationwide strike following an agreement it reached with the federal government negotiating team. It is expected that the tripartite committee will reach an amicable agreement on a new national minimum wage within the one-week window given by Labour. The Nigerian Labour Congress has described the federal government's silence on the April 3rd electricity tariff hike as disappointing. NLC disclosed this in its communique on Tuesday after its National Executive Council meeting, where it suspended its indefinite strike for 1 week. It expressed disappointment over the government's silence and lack of concrete action regarding the reversal of the electricity tariff hike and the abolition of the apartheid classification of electricity consumers into bands. The NEC reaffirmed that the issues are critical to alleviating the financial burden on Nigerian workers and the general populace, saying the electricity tariff hike and discriminatory band classification remain unacceptable and must be addressed alongside the wage increase. The National Electricity Regulatory Commission had on April 3rd approved tariff increment of over 200 naira per kilowatt per hour for customers getting 20 to 24 hours power supply, which generated reactions from many Nigerians. The NLC and Trade Union Congress and other organizations had called for the complete reversal of the new tariff hike. Security operatives have cordoned off the Wall Street Market and other adjoining streets and roads in Abapanike, Enugu, following Tuesday evening's clash between the task force on the enforcement of government's ban on the activities of plastic and scavengers. Correspondent Ebenezer Odo, who visited the area today, reports that residents and business operators around in the area now live in fear following the development.
Residents of the suburban area, including traders and motorists, are now living in fear as the police detachment has cordoned off roads linking the scrap depot. The masked policemen who refused Signature TV correspondents access to the area blocked roads leading to College Road, Ukwaki Bypass, and Nike Road. Trouble broke out when the Enugu State Task Force enforcing government ban on the activities of plastic and iron scrapers were trying to prevent the loading of suspected stolen and vandalized items into trailers for their illicit buyers. A vehicle belonging to the task force was also touched by the scavengers. Mr. Ernest Nwokolo, who spoke to Signature TV News, said the problem was between the scrap sellers at the Mpo scrap depot, who chased away men of the distress response squad who came to the depot. Mr. Nwokolo explained that the bubble burst when the DRS officials invited policemen whom the scrap sellers used every dangerous weapon to chase up to St. Teresa's Catholic Church, Apapanike. He explained that the police started shooting sporadically, and in the process, one scrap seller was killed.
Actually, before they said that there's rumor that whether government don't want to scrap people to be doing their business in the state or something like that. Do you understand? Maybe I thought maybe that's what the police people went there for.
Mr. Ike Chukwokwo spoke in the same vein, stating that everybody started running helter-skelter when the scrap sellers chased the men of the task force out of their territory, adding that it was the task force men who invited the police to save them, resulting in the stampede in the area.
We have a international businessman in Mpo, cement dealers and raw dealers at Mpo. We have a scrap dealers at Mpo. So if government want to do something from Mpo, then let them remember that somewhere X, somebody there is doing another business, not only scrap people.
Residents of the area who spoke off camera say their lives are in danger as their freedom of movement has been checkmated and called on the state government to intervene. In Enugu, Ebenezer Odo, Signature TV News.
The All Progressives Congress, APC in Enugu, has lashed out at Governor Peter Mbah over the ongoing demolition of properties in parts of Enugu for the construction of the proposed bus terminals. The party, which conducted a tour of the demolition sites in the state's capital, described the exercise as ill-conceived and an economic terrorism on the people of Enugu State. Addressing newsmen during the tour of the demolition sites on Tuesday, the state's chairman of the party, Chief Ugochukwu Agbala, called on the House of Representatives to invoke its powers to set up an administrative panel of inquiry to stop the demolition and ensure that commensurate compensation to not only landowners but also those whose businesses were destroyed. The Zonal Commanding Officer, Federal Road Safety Corps, Benin Zone, Stella Orakwe, has charged officers under the zone to brace up for the onerous task of minimizing road crashes. Orakwe was addressing regular and special marshals under the Anambra State Sector Command during her official tour of Awka on Wednesday and joined various state governments to assist the sector commands with vehicles and other facilities that would ensure a rapid response to distress calls. She commended the Anambra State government for maintaining a good rapport with the command and pleaded for more interventions in other areas of critical need. The Zonal Commanding Officer, who oversees Edo, Delta, and Anambra State sector commands, reminded the officers of the Corps Marshal's zero tolerance for loss of lives from road crashes.
Corps Marshal has zero tolerance for crashes, so all hands are on deck, both regular marshals, special marshals, stakeholders, to ensure that crashes are limited to barest minimum, in fact, to zero, to ensure that no deaths occurs as a result of crashes. That is the mandate of the Corps, and that is what we are all out to achieve.
Orakwe commended the efforts of the State Sector Commander, Adeoye Irileyewu, and the State Coordinator of the Special Marshals, Patrick Esumai, in road safety measures and called for sustenance of the tempo. The maiden official tour of the Sector Command featured inspections of guards and interactive session with the officers and marshals. The Benue State House of Assembly on Tuesday extended the tenure of the chairman of the caretaker committees for the 23 local government areas in the states for another 6 months. This followed a letter sent to the House by Governor Hyacinth Alia and read on the floor of the House during plenary by the Speaker, Hyacinth Dajo. The letter indicates that the tenure of the current caretaker chairman is scheduled to expire on June 5th, 2024. According to the letter, the extension of the tenure of the caretaker chairman will give the Benue State Independent Electoral Commission enough time to prepare and conduct the local government council elections. There has not been any democratic structure at the third tier of government since the inception of the present administration in Benue State following the suspension of democratically elected council chairman of the ousted People's Democratic Party government. The president of the NG Educators International Model United Nations Secretariat in Enugu, Tinubu Ahure, says Enugu State has set a pace towards creating innovations to improve the educational sector in Nigeria. Ahure, who made the declaration at the opening ceremony of a one-week 2024 conference at Old Government Lodge, Enugu, said the bold step has attracted the interest of the United Nations to have her fourth headquarters in Enugu. Signature TV correspondent Chinemerem Ikebunam, who was at the event, now reports.
Enugu State has set the record as the first state in Nigeria to host the NG Educators International Model United Nations, NGIMUN, which is a platform with a global vision set for insightful discussion on international perspectives regarding education development in developing countries. The president, NGIMUN, Tinubu Ahure, said the decision to host NGIMUN in Enugu is informed by the state government's contribution towards development of education and innovation in the states.
It is confirmed and authenticated, Your Excellency, that in the Global South, the leading destination in the entire Global South, that is the developing countries, it is Enugu State that is pioneering and leading in educational development.
The Enugu State Governor Peter Mbah said his administration, apart from introducing key reforms in education, has also made giant strides in other sectors.
Enugu's historic role and the consequential roles she has played sort of is the reason we've taken the view that we took in a number of sectors, and I would soon narrow down in education. But we took the view that we can actually continue to be a model of development across the continent. Your presence here underscores a shared commitment to foster and sustain a high-quality education system capable of preparing our youth for the future.
Cynthia Tykestick, a special advisor on education technology in New York, who spoke to Signature TV, expressed satisfaction with the state government's effort on education, especially in science and technology.
What you've set up in the smart green schools is really promising. So a lot of the work I do is on digital literacy and the technology that goes into the smart green schools. And I've met some of the children. They're here representing the school, and they're really engaged in their learning, which is important. Everybody talks about STEM, which is the science, technology, math, right? But in the United States, we're realizing more for like the mental health, emotional health, that the arts and the humanities is important too. So we've moved to STEAM. So it's the STEAM is the engine.
Other keynote speakers and participants highlighted areas that require global attention in the education sector.
The impact of ethics for education, because it's very important to talk about behavior in the context of education. So that's my own contribution.
That your little stipend you can bring in can help a child. Because so many of them, they are well to do when it comes to mental aspect.
Unfortunately, we also know of the war that is taking place in the northwest and the southwest regions of Cameroon. We cannot talk politics here and talk education and neglect the fact that many children in the northwest and southwest for the past 8 years now have not been to school because thousands of schools have been shut down.
What the governor has really suggested, they are very good. There are also other things needed to put, like some people don't have access to education, maybe because of they don't have enough money, or they put them through child abuse. So like we need to make the government to stop all this child abuse and all this hawking, putting children.
The International Model United Nations Conference has gained recognition for its role in promoting diplomacy, dialogue, and collaboration among students from diverse cultural backgrounds and nationalities. Chinemere Mikebunam for Signature TV News.
Still to come, NDIC begins payments of Heritage Bank customers. Tinubu congratulates Mexico's first female president, Sheinbaum. Join us again. Welcome back. The Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation, NDIC, says it will begin payment of insured sum to 2.3 million depositors of Heritage Bank in liquidation this week. The managing director of NDIC, Mr. Bello Hassan, said this while briefing newsmen in Abuja on Wednesday. Hassan said the bank had preliminary deposits of 650 billion naira and loan worth 700 billion naira. According to him, 99.9% of depositors of the defunct bank have a deposit balance of less than 5 million naira, while only 4,000 of the depositors have more than 5 million naira deposits. The Minister of Works, David Umahi, has condemned the vandalism of the superstructure at the second Niger Bridge. In a statement issued by Orji Uchenna, his special advisor on media Tuesday in Abuja, Umahi described the act as cruel and cowardly. He expressed deep shock that reports of the vandalism were still being recorded in spite of the presence of the private security outfit deployed to the area. Umahi said Second Niger Bridge is one of the projects intended to bridge the gap in the road infrastructure and boost economic activities by expanding access into the southern part of the country. The minister expressed appreciation to members of the public for their zeal and concerns and for raising the desired alarm that trended widely on media platforms. He assured that a more formidable security architecture was being activated to forestall further havoc on the facilities. President Bola Tinubu has congratulated Claudia Sheinbaum on her historic election as Mexico's first female president. In a statement by spokesman Ajurin Gilali on Wednesday, Tinubu stated that the election of Sheinbaum has cemented the voices of women in government and broken the political glass ceiling. The president said Sheinbaum's election had sent a reverberating message across the world that women must not only be participants but principal architects in shaping and implementing decisions affecting the lives of many. The president congratulates the people of Mexico and calls for the strengthening of bilateral ties between the country and Nigeria across areas of mutual interest. According to official results from the National Electoral Institute, the 61-year-old scientist and a former Mexico City mayor won around 58 to 60% of votes. The institute said this was more than 30 percentage points ahead of her main opposition rival, Xochitl Galvez, who conceded defeat, and over 50 percentage points ahead of only man running, centrist George Alvarez Menes. And elsewhere, an Italian court found the American Amanda Knox guilty of slander on Wednesday and handed her a 3-year jail term in a case related to the murder in 2007 of her British flatmate. The sentence will have no practical impact as it is covered by the time Knox spent in jail before her conviction for the killing of British student Meredith Ketcher in Perugia was annulled in 2015. Knox, who was in court for the verdict, had been sentenced to 3 years for wrongly accusing Congolese bar owner Patrick Lumumba of the killing of Ketcher in an earlier case. Knox spent 4 years in jail for the killing of Ketcher. Her lawyer, Luca Luparia Donati, said in an initial response that Amanda feels very bitter about the judgment and plans to go on appeal.
Outcome of the decision, we need to read carefully the motivation, which will be available in the next 60 days. Amanda is very upset, and from the outcome of this hearing, she was looking to have a final point of all this 17 years now judicial procedure. So at the moment she's very upset. But of course we recognize the decision, we accept the decision, but we're looking forward to understand exactly what are the motivation behind, which, as I said, will be available after 60 days. After the reading of the motivation, we will take the necessary new steps.
Knox, now aged 36, earlier accused Italian police of threats and violence as she sought to clear her name in the last outstanding case against her. Hamas says it will not agree to a hostage swap deal unless Israel clarifies permanent ceasefire and total withdrawal from the Gaza Strip. A senior Hamas official, Osama Hamdan, said on Tuesday night at Lebanon, Hamas had received the latest deal proposed by Israel and the U.S. He said some statements in the three-phase proposal, such as mediators, will ensure that negotiations can continue indefinitely until both parties reach an agreement, do not align with U.S. President Biden's May 31st speech, in which he mentioned achieving a permanent ceasefire between both parties. This, he said, indicates that Israel only aims to achieve a short-term ceasefire in the first phase and will then resume its attacks on the Gaza Strip, and that Israel does not wish for a ceasefire nor a meaningful result from the related negotiations. The Kremlin on Wednesday described comments by U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen that Washington would not tolerate China increasing its exports of dual-use goods to Russia and would respond with sanctions as blackmail. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said that Washington's tone was completely unacceptable and that Moscow stood in solidarity with Beijing. The United States says that by providing dual-use goods, which have both civilian and military applications, China is powering Russia's war effort in Ukraine. Russia and China have sharply boosted bilateral trade since the start of the Ukraine war, as Russia's commerce with the West has been decimated by waves of sanctions. Still to come, Biden lands in France for D-Day anniversary and democracy speech. Christian Chukwu mourns teammate Stanley Okoronkwo. Join us after this break. Welcome back. President Joe Biden landed in France on Wednesday to commemorate the 80th anniversary of D-Day on a trip designed to underscore his commitment to U.S. allies in Europe and contrast his vision of democracy with his 2024 political opponent, Donald Trump. Biden will spend 5 days in France and attend D-Day celebrations in Normandy, where U.S. and allied forces stormed French beaches in attack that helped defeat Nazi Germany in World War II, as well as deliver a high-profile speech and hold a formal state visit with President Emmanuel Macron. While in Normandy, Biden will sit down for talks with Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky about the war efforts to repel Russian invaders. White House National Secretary, or Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan told reporters aboard the presidential flight to Paris. Biden's remarks in Normandy, both on Thursday, June 6th at the formal 80th anniversary ceremony and on Friday, June 7th at the famed Pointe du Hoc cliffs, will center around the dangers of isolationism and the need to stand up to dictators, Sullivan said. Biden will draw a connection from World War II through the Cold War and creation of the NATO alliance to today, where we face once again war in Europe, where NATO has rallied to defend freedom and sovereignty. Biden, a Democrat, is running for re-election in November against Trump, a Republican, and has made preserving and strengthening U.S. democracy a key part of his campaign in the aftermath of Trump's chaotic 4 years in office. And elsewhere, Jordan has foiled 2 plots to smuggle millions of Captagon pills through a border post near Saudi Arabia in the biggest seizure in years of drugs smuggled by Iran-linked networks operating in southern Syria to lucrative Gulf markets. The haul was discovered hidden in construction vehicles at the Omari crossing, officials told Reuters on Wednesday. Law enforcement authorities had for weeks tracked 2 separate operations bringing the consignment of drugs across Jordan's northern border with Syria. But unlike previous drugs busts, authorities made the seizure at the Saudi border. War-ravaged Syria has become the region's main site for the mass production of the addictive afamectin-type stimulant known as Captagon, with Jordan a key transit route to the oil-rich Gulf states, Western anti-narcotics officials say. Jordanian officials, like their Western allies, say that Lebanon's Iran-backed Hezbollah group and pro-Iranian militias who control such or much of southern Syria are behind the surge in the multi-billion-dollar drugs and weapons trade. UN experts and US and European officials say the illicit drug trade finances a proliferation of pro-Iranian militias and pro-government paramilitary forces created by more than a decade of conflict in Syria. Former Green Eagles captain and Rangers international Christian Chukwu has described the deaths of teammates Stanley Okoronkwo as a sad loss. Chukwu, who spoke in an interview with news agency of Nigeria, NAN, in Enugu, described the deaths of Stanley as a sad and a very painful loss. Chukwu said he and other club mates would surely miss Okoronkwo. Also speaking, the former chairman of Rangers Supporters Club in the 70s, Hyginus Ilonu, lamented the deaths of Okoronkwo, who he said was close friend. Okoronkwo joined Rangers International in 1974 and retired in 1979 after Rangers won the then African Cup Winners' Cup in 1977 and died on Monday after a brief illness in Enugu. To some other sports stories, Napoli have appointed Antonio Conte as manager. The Serie A club said on Wednesday, with the Italian signing a contract until 2027. Conte will be coming back from a one-year break following his departure from the position of head coach at Premier League club Tottenham Hotspur. Brazilian teenager prodigy Endrick said on Tuesday that he was determined to win the first Copa America and fulfill his dream of playing for Real Madrid. Although the Copa America kicks off on June 20, Brazil will make their debut on June 24th against Costa Rica at Sophie Stadium in Los Angeles. But before that, they will play two friendly games against Mexico and the United States on June 8th and 12th in Texas and Florida, respectively. Endrick went to meet his teammates in Orlando, Florida, where he greeted staff and Brazilian team coach Dorival Jr. Footage shared by the Brazilian Football Federation showed. The 17-year-old forward played his last match for his lifelong club Palmeiras on Thursday, May 30, with fans serenading him while they held up a giant flag with his image and the words, "See you soon." Endrick is set to join Real Madrid on his 18th birthday on July 21st. And that's Signature TV News this hour. I'm Charles Pius. Thanks for watching. See you later.